Sometimes you read a book and it really pisses you off. And I don't mean like, oh, this is like poor writing type of way. I mean, the events being described to you are just unfathomable levels of villain twirling his mustache evil. Now, I read a lot of history. History is full of monsters. And I've read a good amount of books that have stuck with me over the years. For instance, this past weekend, I just finished Empire of Pain, The Secret History of the Sackler Dynasty by Patrick Radden Keefe. And this is one of those books. This is the History Sickos Book Club read for August. And I think everybody in the club feels the same way about it. Everybody is astonished by how awful some of these real life villains are. And I'm still wrapping my head around everything that was covered in here. I've got a big old document of notes that I took while reading that I need to review and condense down into coherent thoughts. But for now, just consider this like a bonus recommendation. This was excellent and infuriating. So yeah, keep an eye out for my August monthly wrap up where I'll have full thoughts on it. And today I'm going to cover 5 books from a similar vein, 5 books with that vein being like shocking history books that will piss you off. And we're going to roll on that in a few seconds. Just a reminder that if you like this content, you want more of it, hit like, subscribe, share it with a friend that you think would appreciate it. Check out my other efforts on my link tree, which is linked in the description. And that's it. Super quick, obligatory call to action. Check the content creator box. Boom, did it. Let's get to the nerdy and shocking books. The first book up is The Rape of Nanking, The Forgotten Holocaust of World War II by Iris Chang. This covers events that occurred during the Second Sino-Japanese War, which was fought between Japan and China from 1937 to 1945. The massacre itself took place over 6 weeks in late 1937 after the Japanese rapidly advanced through China. And as the Japanese pushed into Nanking, they began a campaign of terror, including wiping out entire villages. And this took an even more monstrous form when they continued to the city and captured Nanking and began summary executions. And there were all manner of horrors like visited upon the men, women, and children of Nanking. Like if you've read The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang and its most notorious chapter, you have a solid idea of what went down here. And to this day, these events are still contested by various factions in Japan. And this is not limited to fringe groups. Some high-ranking politicians have either attempted to downplay these events or have entirely denied them. Estimates of civilian deaths range from the tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands. This figure also remains a topic of debate, but regardless of the precise number, the events were horrific and clearly violated international law. For example, Cheng says, quote, "Tens of thousands of young men were rounded up and herded to the outer areas of the city where they were mowed down by machine guns, used for bayonet practice, or soaked with gasoline and burned alive," end quote. And that is just like the beginning of it. So yeah, I would warn you that this book is not for the faint of heart, not for the weak of stomach. It is graphic and brutal throughout. Researching these events and working on a new book about the Bataan Death March may have even contributed to the author's tragic decision to take her own life. Nonetheless, this book is essential. It's thoroughly researched, elegantly written, and well organized. It illuminates a very dark chapter of 21st century warfare, and the text explores the events from 3 perspectives: the Chinese civilians, the Japanese soldiers, and the Americans and Europeans who established safety zones that helped save many lives. And in doing so, it examines the psychology behind these events. This is a crucial point, the psychology part. With some books, just they merely present a list of horrors without delving into the reasons behind them. It would have been easy for Cheng to fall into the same trap of depicting Japanese soldiers as mere monsters, especially given the family's connection with Nanking. And I really do think that's what sets this book apart from some other books that I could have listed in this stack but didn't. Also in this, you receive a complete story of this event, the lead up to the massacre, the attack itself, and it concludes with the aftermath, including the trials and attempts to cover it up afterwards. I have read this twice. It's a 5-star book for me, and it is one of my favorites of all time. Next up is King Leopold's Ghost, a story of greed, terror, and heroism in colonial Africa by Adam Hochschild. This is about that dickhead, King Leopold II, and how he established the Congo Free State, turning it into his personal possession, seizing a ton of land, using tactics like hostage-taking, forced labor, mutilation, and just straight up killing to exploit the Congo's natural resources like rubber, ivory, palm oil, timber, and so on. Millions of people died in this process, and it's estimated that maybe half of the populations in the areas that he impacted were eliminated. It's crazy. He did all this by fooling the international community about it for years, claiming that this was a humanitarian issue. He was going out there to help those people. And hey, as part of the deal, people got inflatable tires for their bikes. The invention of which kicked off a rubber boom. And because of all the rubber in the Congo, Leopold said, hey, let's send in some armed men. Let's kidnap some folk, force them to get the job done. And of course, you're going to set the quotas impossibly high and chop off their hands and other body parts if they don't meet those quotas. They even might execute your entire family if they're feeling froggy on that day. And this account profiles individuals who, despite their imperfections, could no longer stand by after witnessing the atrocities committed by evil people. They chose to take action, resulting in like an eye-opening examination of these injustices and the courageous people who worked to bring them to light. Their efforts ultimately culminated in the first photographic human rights campaign, which shocked a world that was generally convinced of the civilizing impact of colonialism. This book brings all of that stuff to light. It's well-researched. It's accessible to a general audience. It's also going to piss you off, but you probably need to read it. Third on the docket is The Radium Girls, The Dark Story of America's Shining Women by Kate Moore. This book caused me so much physical discomfort in my jaw for reasons that you'll understand if you read it, or maybe if you have read it and you already know, because it's pretty doggone hard to forget. And in general, this book and these events are hard to put out of your mind after you read them. Setting the stage here, the Radium Girls worked at the United States Radium Corporation during the 1910s and 1920s, where their job required them to paint a radioactive element onto like airplane dials and watches. Everyone thought this was safe. The girls even like enjoyed like the glow it gave their skin, hair, and nails. The problem is they were constantly ingesting this substance because they placed the paintbrushes in their mouths using the lip dip paint technique. Because of this, they started to develop like really nasty physical conditions, one of which is known as radium jaw. Like their teeth start falling out, the extractions aren't healing properly, and their jaws are literally falling apart. They could pick out pieces of their jaw. And despite everything, the company insists that radium is not the cause of the issues, setting the stage for this book. These courageous women not only battle the corporation in court, but they also battle for their lives. This narrative history focuses on that battle and the lives of those women involved. It is well written, thoroughly researched, and incredibly engaging. You'll find yourself turning the pages quickly, feeling like a mix of like frustration and anticipation. If you're not already familiar with the beginning, middle, and end of the story, you'll be eager to see how it all unfolds. All told, 4.5 stars. This was damn good. Next up, we have Ordinary Men, Reserve Police Battalion 101 and the Final Solution in Poland by Christopher Browning. If you're compiling a list of essential reading on the Holocaust, this book definitely needs to be included. It focuses on a specific police battalion and explores the question, why did most men in that group become killers while only a small minority did not? This question, it's more complex than it seems at first glance, and the background on these individuals reveals so much. And there are numerous theories attempting to explain this behavior, and there isn't a one-size-fits-all answer since you're dealing with 500 members of this battalion, each with different ages and backgrounds, experiences, belief systems, and worldviews. And Browning suggests several factors that contributed to their actions, including wartime brutalization, of course, racism, segmentation and routinization of the task, special selection of perpetrators, careerism, obedience to orders, deference to authority, ideological indoctrination, and conformity. And Browning examines all of these elements while taking readers through the actions and testimonies of members of this battalion. But again, this isn't just a list of horrors. You're going to attempt to understand the psychology of it all, which is what I appreciate most about this book. And to that end, perhaps the most significant question that Browning poses is, if the men of Reserve Police Battalion 101 could become killers under such circumstances, what group of men cannot? And that is a loaded question that has given me something to think about for a long time. This book is a difficult and challenging read, and I'm not talking about the accessibility of it. From a technical standpoint, like if you put it through like a readability model, it's perfectly fine. But it's going to talk about some rough events and topics, and that's why I think this should be required reading for anyone interested in understanding this dark chapter in history. All right, next is Cobalt Red How the Blood of the Congo Powers Our Lives by Siddharth Kara. This is an enlightening expose which examines the cobalt industry in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. It highlights how our smartphones, laptops, tablets, and electric vehicles, which rely on lithium-ion rechargeable batteries, are linked to a complex and decentralized system of cobalt mining. This system has resulted in exploitative and hazardous working conditions for local miners. These artisanal miners, they call them, use pickaxes, shovels, stretches of rebar to hack and scrounge at the earth in trenches and pits and tunnels to gather cobalt and feed it up the supply chain. They do this while scarring the land, hacking down millions of trees, polluting the water and air with toxic cobalt dust. It's a wild situation. The health complications are numerous. Deadly collapses are far too frequent. Like, these miners are risking their health and lives for a few bucks a day, but like, it's either that or you don't eat. And in this, Kara highlights the extensive network of intermediary agents that connect individual miners to various buyers, depots, processors, and refining industries. These agents collectively share in the value generated from the mined cobalt. And at the end of this supply chain are the battery manufacturers contracted by global technology companies. Because of their distance from the start of the chain, these manufacturers often feel that they can wash their hands of the issue, avoiding any responsibility or accountability. Their empty public relations statements do little to improve the working conditions for the miners involved. And transparency and accountability are essential throughout the supply chain, and honest collaboration is necessary for a change. However, this has not yet occurred. That's why we need more books addressing this issue and increased media coverage on this issue overall. And that's not to say that this book doesn't have any flaws. From an execution standpoint, it's probably the weakest of the stack. But that and some other minor issues I had with it didn't detract from its overall value enough for me to keep it out of this stack. So I'll recommend getting your peepers on this one. So that is 5 shocking books that will piss you off in the history genre. If you got the stomach for it, take it down. I appreciate you hanging out with me for this one, and I'll see you on the next one.